for me, Andrew actually rose to the level of defamation when he started claiming that I had actually said things that I had never said. I mean, he flagrantly lies, and I showed that on my platform when he pretended that I did an episode suggesting that Adolf Hitler burning books was a good thing. I wasn't even speaking about Adolf Hitler. It's a nonsense to think that I would do that on my platform. And it's a trick also. It's meant to make people feel emotional and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that she's supporting Adolf Hitler. And I thought it was nasty business.
But when you start saying things like some of those books Hitler burned weren't so bad, you know, I was shocked. This is something Candace actually said. I was surprised to learn that the books Hitler was burning or the Nazis were burning, they weren't good books. They were bad books. They were socialist books. So, you know, that's true. Burning the book is the act of a savage, first of all. And when you start with burning books, you start burning people. But they burned Joseph Conrad, one of my favorite writers, Kafka, Hemingway, Jack London, and yes, some socialists, some of whom were extremely talented and some of whom were extremely interesting, like Karl Marx is an extremely interesting writer with whom I deeply, deeply disagree, but I don't burn his books because I'm not a savage. When you start saying that, that's a dog whistle. I'm sorry. I know it's a leftist phrase. I know they use it, you know, randomly with anything you say. I understand all of that. Still, the depredations of the Nazis against the Jews are one of the most well-documented, recorded atrocities in human history because they're Germans. They're Germans. They keep records. They keep very good records. We know these things happen. They weren't burning books. You know, they also hated Einstein because his science was Jewish science. They hated Mendelssohn, one of their great composers, because his music was Jewish music. That's the way they thought. It's lunacy. It's lunacy to think that way. So when you start to say, well, you know, some of those books they burned are bad books, I'm sorry. That's a dog whistle.
Which, by the way, brings me to number 2 on the did you know question, because this really blew my mind. Do you know which books the Nazis were burning? And I'm asking you this, and I'm telling you why it blew my mind is because definitely something that we covered extensively, and you will cover extensively throughout the public education system, is the Holocaust, Nazi Germany. It's why so many people, when they're commenting, it seems like the only historical reference they have is, it's just like Hitler, they're literally Nazis. So that obsession with only referring to that historical aspect is partially because when you're in the public school system, you really focus on World War II and the Nazis. So I was shocked that I never learned throughout that schooling that the brown shirts, you know, the student activists that went around burning a bunch of books were burning books that they deemed to be Marxist and that they deemed to be overtly sexual. And one of the first and most notorious book burnings was the student-led destruction of the library at the Institute for Sexual Research. That library was founded by a man named Magnus Hirschfeld. So I was shocked that I never learned throughout that schooling that the brown shirts, you know, the student activists that went around burning a bunch of books were burning books that they deemed to be Marxist and that they deemed to be overtly sexual.
Yes. The Nazis did not like other political views. That is correct.
People who are aware of Nazi Germany's history will probably cringe at what she's saying here. First off,
student activists on World War II and the Nazis. So I was shocked that I never learned throughout that schooling that the brown shirts, you know, the student activists that went around burning a bunch of books.
Activists who went around burning a bunch of books. The brown shirts were student activists who went around burning a bunch of books. The brown shirts. Who are the brown shirts? The brown shirts were very famously known not as regular student activists, but as the Nazi paramilitary organization, the Sturmabteilung.
The Storm Division.
Sturmabteilung. The paramilitary, the violent paramilitary, trying to form a violent militant movement within Germany for the Nazi Party, who also went around and conducted several very, very notorious, very well-known acts of killing people, destroying all kinds of property, destroying Jewish shops, burning books, and so on. She just seriously sat there and described these people, the brown shirts, as, the student activists who went around burning books. Student activists. Let's read what Oxford Reference says here. Member of an early Nazi paramilitary organization, the Sturmabteilung, or SA, Assault Division, the brown shirts recruited from various rough elements of society were founded by Adolf Hitler in Munich in 1921, fitted out in brown uniforms reminiscent of Mussolini's black shirts. They figured prominently in organized marches and rallies. Their violent intimidation of political opponents and of Jews played a key role in Hitler's rise to power. Does it so far sound like these were just a bunch of
student activists?
Student activists? No, it doesn't, right? From 1931...
Well, I mean, technically, they had a lot of students, and they're activists, so...
From 1931, the SA was led by a radical anti-capitalist Ernst Röhm. By 1933, it numbered some 2 million, double the size of the army, which was hostile to them. Röhm's ambition was that the SA should achieve parity with the army and the Nazi Party and serve as the vehicle for a Nazi revolution in state and society. For Hitler, the main consideration was to ensure the loyalty to his regime of the German establishment and in particular of the German officer corps. Consequently, he had more than 70 members of the SA, including Röhm, summarily executed by the SS in the Night of the Long Knives, after which the revolutionary period of Nazism may be said to have ended. But hey, let's hear once again how Candace Owens describes these people.
The Nazis, when you're in the public school system, you really learned throughout that schooling that the brown shirts, the student activists that went around burning a bunch of books, were burning books that they deemed...
All right. It is just amazing, isn't it? This is an instance where I would say that that this is incompetence, ignorance, more than just her vile, dishonest aspect. Because she doesn't know much. She's actually quite ignorant. She doesn't know very much. She learns things from social media. She learns things from somebody who tweets something.
Yeah. She learns things from groypers.
Yeah,
let's put it that from groypers. Let's put it that way.
And I'm not sure how in the world she got that whole idea that these were just regular student activists. But I mean, putting this out there, just describing them as regular student activists, it's a very stupid thing to do. It's not just deceptive; it's stupid. It's just stupid. It's ignorant.
And she's acting like they're good guys because among the things they're burning, hey, they're burning Marxist stuff. Yeah, they're burning anything that's not in line with the Nazi Party.
Yes.
That was their solution. Here's the Nazi Party. This stuff disagrees with it. Let's go burn it all. She's like, but look at the great thing. Look at the things they were burning. What a great job, guys. These great student activists who put Hitler in power.
Yeah. And that is the second aspect of it. I just got so stuck on her calling them just student activists. But the second aspect of it is also that she actually distributes this false pro-Nazi apologist propaganda that the books they were burning were just books that were morally reprehensible. A bunch of Marxist stuff and overly sexual stuff. That's not what happened. That is not what happened. We have endless lists and names of books that were actually burned. We have names of authors whose books were burned. Jewish authors, categorically, no matter what they wrote about, were considered for burning and mostly burned. So their books were mostly burned. Communist authors, did I just say actors? I don't know. Communist authors had their books burned. liberal, anti-Nazi authors had their books burned. All kinds of different people, regular conservative capitalist books were burned. Lots of different books on medicine, on art, whatever it is, all across the board were burned. And as said, Jewish books, so books from Jewish authors, were categorically considered for burning and mostly burned. This has nothing to do with just being repulsed by the Marxist and sexual content and then burning them. This is a well-known neo-Nazi, a Nazi apologist propaganda point, which she's repeating here. And to people who are not aware of it, this may sound like, quite innocent, and she's making a moral point here and saying that things weren't actually that bad. And she's also saying that she never really learned this in school. Well, she's the ignorant one. I did learn this in school. I also did learn this later on myself. Lots of people out there do learn this, and they know very well that this is not what happened in Nazi Germany. She's presenting Nazi lies, Nazi apologia. That's what she's doing.
Factually speaking, I have never said anything that is anti-Semitic, and had I have said something that was anti-Semitic, Andrew Klavan would have simply showed the clip.
You're messing with us. You're messing with us, and everyone knows it, and no one is fooled except those people who want to pretend to be fooled because they hate the Jews.